Can we talk a little bit about the regulatory landscape and what people are waiting for?
Well, a lot of people are waiting for some sort of green light from Washington to say, hey, it's okay to start using social media. And what they don't realize is that there is not going to be any proactive clear light. They are giving guidance, whether it's the SEC or FINRA, but the key is operating within the rules that have existed for many, many years. And I talk about that in the book, The Socially Savvy Advisor. And in fact, I talked to our own general counsel who used to be at Fidelity, and I said, Stu, you know, is there any reason that people can't be on social media? And he said, you know, if I'm an attorney for the financial services industry and I'm on social media, of course they can be. Again, it's just making sure that you're abiding by those rules.
In your presentation for the FGF conference, you mentioned 5 realizations. Could we talk a little bit about those?
You know, companies are not using social media to sell products. They're really using it primarily to build their brand. Actually, about 86% of companies are using it to build their brand. 89% are using it to listen. But even though it ain't about the money, social media can actually save them some money. So a good example, there are some big companies that are listening for issues that might be happening on their website and allowing customers to serve as a frontline defense, fixing those issues, addressing back, and turning those customers actually into ambassadors for the company.
You also mentioned the threat of cyber attacks.
Well, a lot of relationships, as we know, are moving digital. Everybody knows that in 5 years, about 65% of high net worth individuals will perceive their relationships financially to be digital. But the big move is in the cybercrime area. And that's because a typical financial services firm will experience a $20 million price tag to a cyber attack. And those attacks today can happen through social media, through the alluring follower that says, click here, get to know me, I'm maybe even an employee. So very careful, needing to be very careful about that.
I think you also touched on compliance and texting.
Well, texting may be taking off, and that's really a surprise to me. I was actually just in the offices of the head of the financial advisor group for a major household financial firm, and she said, you know, we're looking for a solution to be compliant and track texting by our advisors. And that was a real aha for me, because most advisors and firms are thinking of social media for content sharing, right? That's really the common practice. I was surprised, and it was good news to see that they're really taking forward action on texting.
And you also mentioned an issue about women and social compliance and social media.
Well, women, it's interesting, you know, they've gotten a lot of attention over the years. When I was in Silicon Valley 15 years ago, I remember that women were the bigger internet users than men, and that's continued to dominate on the social scene. And companies are really starting to understand that, because by the year 2020, women will control about 2/3 of wealth. That's a huge number. You can't ignore that market. And at the same time, I'm seeing a lot of financial companies are now increasing their recruitment of women, because those are the customers of the future.
And you talked about the other side of social media, the savings that can be achieved.
Well, the social media, it's a big surprise to many, but you know, even having used it on the job myself as head of the Financial Women's Association, it can save your behind. And that's because it can even help you be successful on the job. I mean, a great example is I walked into the job 2 weeks, and we had an event coming up, and we only had about 40 people signed up, and we needed 100 within a matter of days. It was in part by capitalizing and embracing social media that we were able to increase the turnout and the participants of that event, and at the same time build our brand and awareness. So for a lot of people, social media can build their reputation, build their firms, maybe even help them save their jobs, so to speak.
You've also been busy. You've written a book, and why did you decide to do that now?
Well, so many people in the industry are sitting there just like in the email days. When email came to be, there were those who embraced it and those who sat on the side waiting, saying, oh no, we're not going to use it. And I spoke to 200 people in the industry, advisors, wealth managers, banks, you name it. And they all had so many of the same questions. How do I separate personal from professional when it comes to social, if I do? How do I deal with my compliance offer? How do I measure success, ROI? What kind of resources do I need at all? How do I get started? What's my social media compliance policy need to look like? all of those questions. So I decided, you know what, need to put this together in a book, and actually did it in part with the former head of compliance for Fidelity. It answers all the big questions, but it also brings into play the best practices and case studies from some of the biggest names in the industry.